Welcome back to an episode of Spectator Mode. I'm your co-host, Neil Strebig. With me, as always, is Donald Double D
I
DeCray.
know, and I keep trying to escape.
Wow, okay. I even wore matching shirts today for you, man. Jeez.
Yeah, right. Like that was my deal.
I sent a memo out today, guys. That's a true story. Double D did not respond, but he did get the memo.
No comment. Just no comment on that one, obviously.
But no, we got I don't know, I like our topics today. I really do. I think we got a couple good ones.
Good
Not that we
spread, I think.
normally don't, but yeah, I think we got some timely ones more so than we normally do. I think that's why I'm excited. So be as that may, talking a little about last night's state of play, a couple of new PlayStation games and trailers announced. We'll kind of narrow it down to a couple ones that we had some interest in. Not going to go down through the whole lineup, just FYI. Talk about our favorite video game company and developers, Activision Blizzard. Double hot water on this time. So two different instances to where they're getting into even more negative headlines and coverage, which I don't know how you can do any worse than them at this stage. We talk a little about One Piece and God of War TV shows possibly coming and in the making as well. And then talk about probably the most hype I've been for a trailer in a long time, Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney Plus.
Oh yeah. That's a good one. I'm glad we're ending on that one, to be honest. I'm looking forward to that conversation.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited. So, let's get into it. State of play, PlayStation's big showcase. Showed about a dozen games or so. I didn't do the
Give or
complete
take.
tally, but I was interested. You wanted to talk
It
about
was a dozen exactly,
Ghostwire
actually.
Tokyo and talk a little about the Cowabunga collection with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
hmm
And we had a JoJo Bizarre announcement, video game announcement, and a Gundam game coming finally.
Yeah.
But
Really overdue, isn't it?
it is, but is it really what we wanted? Are you excited about that? Excited about
So,
any of them?
yes. And you mentioned I want to talk about Ghostwire Tokyo. Ghostwire Tokyo is being released by Bethesda. Bethesda for me is one of those companies it's had some real great releases over the years and also some real shit ones, right? They're the studio behind the Elder Scrolls franchise. I personally think they peaked when it was Morrowind. Oblivion was really good. Skyrim was a solid game, but they haven't done anything since Skyrim in that entire franchise. Elder Scrolls Online, I guess. I don't know.
Skyrim's kind of dookie to me, but
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not as a big a fan of Skyrim as I was some of the earlier installments. I think they kind of dumbed it down in a bad way overall. Doom, Dishonored, love those. Fallout, again, hit or miss. Some of the recent titles, Fallout 76 notably being not so great. But at the same time, they've done some really good things, and I remain hopeful that they will continue to do so because Ghostwire Tokyo seems like something that's like right in their wheelhouse is something that they can execute well. You know, I really think that it has the potential to be a really, really well done thing. Also, because it's not derivative. I I hope they're not running the same engine they've been running in Skyrim and Fallout 76 and using that same clunky code everywhere. But it's something new and refreshing. So I'm happy to see them bringing a new title that we're going to get to enjoy. So I'm looking forward to that personally.
did you know anything about the game or any of the games from yesterday's announcements? For me, they're
Not
all
really.
like I didn't hear anything about them,
Most of them were
so
new to
they
me.
were
I
all
mean,
shocks.
the Mutant Ninja Turtles is really just a collection of, older titles that were released. For me, that's kind of cash grabby because I don't know. It's one of those things that I think we could maybe have a deeper conversation about in terms of how companies encourage or discourage piracy. Because if you don't release a reasonable and like relatively cheap way to acquire these titles, like ROMs and emulators exist. Like people will get their hands on them
Yeah.
and they will play them. So like it kind of encourages companies, I think, to release them in some fashion to maintain the IP and to get that money. At the same time, like I'm not convinced every single title needs to be updated and brought to every new console constantly and just be existing forever. You know what I mean? Like Ninja Turtles
Yeah,
enjoyed the games back in the day, arcade, like proper old arcade games, but did they really need to be updated and brought forward in the, onto new
I don't know.
systems?
I'm excited for it. Ninja Turtles in Time, their original TMNT arcade game, which again, if any of y'all ever beat that with just 50 cents, by all means let us know in the comments, because I don't know a single person in the arcade that ever got all the way through that game. Like you got past the second level, you were a G. Um, the old Nintendo Game Boy collection as well, and in color, which I think is also awesome. I remember playing as a kid, and every time you killed a Foot Clan member, it sounded like Ninja Turtle wax, like the sound effect to me. So I used to, like, as a kid, I just remember that. Sorry, it's a weird tidbit.
Yeah,
I'm more shocked that with Shredder's Revenge coming out soon, and the hype with that, and that just basically being a side scroller, action scroller. Did you really need to do the Cowabunga collection with that, or is it they put it out because Shredder's Revenge got a little bit pushed back and delay and the hype and the building some hype? I don't know, because I would rather spend my money on Shredder's Revenge and a whole new game, some updated graphics, than going on a nostalgia train. But
yeah.
I mean, overall, I was kind of underwhelmed with State of Play. I'll be honest. The JoJo Bizarre game, that gave me a stroke watching that trailer.
I mean, that's JoJo the franchise, though.
I didn't even see any actual like content of the actual fighting. It was just like characters yelling and screaming, and I was like, I'm having a stroke right now. I don't know what the hell's going on. And 50 characters, I guess that's a cool way to start. So I mean, that's a hell of a lineup, but I'm not a JoJo fan. Sue me. I don't get it. It's just not my cup of tea. It's the animation style. I don't know. There's a lot of just strangeness in that show for me, and definitely not going to get a fighting game. But the Gundam game, I think, is the one that upset me the most, because it's not. I don't want to play an FPS Gundam game. I want to be able to use the mechs and attack. And it seemed like all of our favorites was this kind of cosmetic stuff. It wasn't. It's basically like Halo pretending to be a Gundam game.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what would make it feel properly Gundam. I'm thinking in my head something similar to the Titanfall system, with the way they use their mechs, that you're like climbing into them. You know what I mean? And the different mechs have different abilities. I think that might be more capturing at least the feeling while still being a first-person shooter-oriented title. Yeah, mixed feelings, but I do want to move on because you mentioned lawsuits, and I think you know where I'm going with this. Our favorite company embroiled in lawsuits, Activision Blizzard. And I think you know what's going on over there, right?
Yeah. I mean, two stories, hot water. I think both in the last week or 2 weeks. The one I'll talk about first, I think, was the last 5 or 6 days thereabouts. So definitely the last week. But they're getting sued by the parents of a former employee, a 32-year-old finance manager, who basically ended up committing suicide due to harassment. We already talked about the mass amounts of harassment lawsuits there. So now they're getting sued by a family that hasn't got any sort of reimbursement. Not a very good look at all. Super sad story. And again, anytime a 32-year-old, dies in general, that's very sad. It's very young, let alone because you're getting harassed so much, you're going to committing suicide. I mean, that's just insane. And then on top of that, they're getting in trouble because they didn't have enough female board members, which was a California law to have at least 3 on your board. And instead of just saying, hey, yeah, we jacked up, they're saying it's Microsoft's fault. They had 3 years. California instituted this in 2019. This merger just announced. So you're telling me in the last 2.5 years, y'all couldn't get one more female board member? They had 2 out of their 10. They needed just one more.
And isn't that crazy? It really is literally one person, right? Because like the way the law is written is 3 out of 6 or more. So if you have more than 6, it's still 3. So it's not even pushing for parity and equality of saying a 50-50 split, which arguably makes sense. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing about video games, I think, as a medium that caters more towards men than women. I don't see that. People of both sides or of all genders can enjoy it. It kind of gets away from certain, physical differences that might exist, that people use that argument kind of for sports, basically saying like, men and women competing in the same field or whatever. There's differences there. Doesn't really apply in video games. You know what I mean? Like a woman can come in and be just as good at a video game as a man, and vice versa, depending on the titles. People have those sort of preconceptions over what titles appeal to which players. It's a load of crock in my mind. The whole thing is manufactured. And the idea that the board doesn't even reflect the players, the actual players that want to buy and consume these games, is ridiculous. And like, we had this conversation a little bit before we started recording, but 24%, like in Blizzard's defense, they're like, oh, but 24% of our employees identify as women or non-binary. And I'm like, what? You're like really proud of that very low number.
Staff too at this day and age is kind of crazy.
I know, and that's including people in all departments, right? Like it's including departments which are going to be traditionally more female dominated, like HR departments and stuff like that. It's not really looking at like their involvement in the different parts of the company, it's just saying across the entire company as a whole, which I would be very interested to know where the women are located and kind of the jobs they're doing, because they're obviously not getting up to management. They're not on the board of directors. So, where are they? Where are they being squirreled away? Like, what the heck, Blizzard? Get off your asses, man.
I'm laughing because I'm more thinking about 24%. It's just like, are we even shocked they had harassment issues to this degree?
Yeah, I mean, who even they don't even want to work for him, man.
Company is only women. Like, that's insane. That's insane in the 21st century. But I mean, I think what I wanted to ask you with this, because I mean, the news is saying it's just like bad news after bad news coming out of Activision Blizzard. It's like, how many just awful headlines can one company get? And then also too, to throw your now buyers, which, it's not finalized yet too. I'm sure Microsoft could also pull out of that at some point. I mean, they made the offer, you could finagle your way out of it, I'm sure, pay off a couple people to just not approve it, whatever. But that's going down a rabbit hole. To even just throw them under the bus and act like it was their fault and they weren't even involved, and not take ownership after you've had monumental historic headlines as a video game juggernaut is just like, do they recover, basically? I mean, do they recover any sort of public credit?
Well, here's the thing that I think needs to be said. I don't think they've suffered. They've taken a blow to their public image for sure, but I haven't seen any drops in terms of their actual like profit margins and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, part of, I think, Microsoft's move to acquire Activision Blizzard is because they have very successful ongoing franchises. People pay World of Warcraft massive money. It's a subscription-based model. It's constant flow. You know what I mean? Like, they're not bringing in new players as much as they might like or whatever, but the people who do play are always paying. It's not like a $60 one-time fee, you're done. You're constantly paying for that. And you look at their other titles, like, there's a lot of passive income basically on the titles and things they've already released. Even if Activision and Blizzard tank all these other issues that we're talking about, they're still going to be a cash cow. And like, they've still been a cash cow despite everything going on. People haven't stopped playing their games. So have they suffered?
You make a great point. It's honestly, I didn't even think about that. They really haven't. And it tells a bigger story too. Do gamers actually care? Is it just the headline and then you're talking essentially 2-3 months of Activision Blizzard negative headlines? Is it the fatigue already there that quickly? And then the shock value is already gone?
Oh, man. I don't know.
How superficial are we as a culture?
Well, because like for me, it comes back to every time a super hype game releases, there's always those posts of don't pre-order, reminding people of all the failed launches, buggy releases, failures to deliver, or piecemealed out games where you're paying for DLC for things that you thought were going to be base game or whatever. And then the people talking, don't pre-order, like, speak with our money. And those posts, like you see them on Reddit and stuff, they get thousands of upvotes. The game releases, tons of pre-orders, massive amount. And like at that point, they've made their money. They don't actually give a flying fuck about the game anymore because the game's out there, the money's collected. Whether they continue to support it or not is based on hopefully their own goodwill or their concern for their product and reputation. But like, we're not giving them incentive. And it comes back to, I think, the same issue, the larger issue here with the companies that are behind this, Activision Blizzard being one of them. We're not really punishing them for their behavior. We talk about it. Opinion's not great. They've been trying in the court of public opinion and, found guilty. But what does that really mean? 3 years, one person. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's no excuse. It's just negligence. It's negligence, not caring. And
yeah, I mean, at that
point too, I'm sure those folks at the top were like, hey, we're not losing money. We can do whatever the hell we want. People are still buying our games.
I mean, and they're out of compliance with the law. And I look forward to seeing if they become, I don't know what I would say, not sanctioned, but I would like to see if there's any kind of consequence for them for failing to get in compliance with the rule. You know what I mean? So I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
But talking about companies that are developing new franchises and IPs, I do want to have a quick conversation. You mentioned One Piece on Netflix has announced more of its cast members, and God of War, I also want to talk about, has been shopped to Amazon potentially as a TV series. And the reason I'm kind of grouping them together is because I think this is sort of two things going on. One, it comes back to the larger issue of crossing mediums. Comics have come to TV and the big screen in a huge way with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so we've seen that happen in a much larger way than it used to. And now it seems like that might be tapping into video games. We've seen several video game titles come out recently, Uncharted among them. and Witcher, which I guess you could argue the book, but I really would say that the video game franchise is what brought new life to the IP overall of The Witcher and what got Netflix series made. And then the same thing with anime getting live action adaptations, especially on Netflix. They seem like that's kind of like their thing right now. And I think this brings up the question of like, hey, are these things becoming more mainstream?
Nerdom has become pop culture. It's been that way, I think, for the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years at this stage. I think it's still shocking to us because we used to get picked on for talking about Spider-Man and Batman. And, I didn't think I'd ever, pick up a chick talking about comic books, but here we are.
Yeah. And like watching anime, I think was always like a, weeaboo type thing. And like there's
it absolutely was. We talked about that in the My Hero episode with, kind of elephant graveyard of nerdom. Even if you watch anime, even for the nerd community, it was like, whoa, but I'm not a huge One Piece fan. So I'm kind of just like, I'm not blown away by it. I think my takeaway with this is the fact of there really isn't anything original in Hollywood at all. It's just all coming back to previously sourced material. Some of it's going to be good, but there's a saturation point to where it's kind of like enough is enough. Like create that universe within film. You know what I mean? Create the One Piece or the God of War universe within a film. And God of War, I think too, I'm more pissed off about that, I think, than One Piece, because
really,
I do think some video games I think need to be protected. I think God of War will not translate well to a live action. I think there's inherent beauty to that game, especially what they did with this last one, going from the transformation to an RPG like they did from the original kind of just hack and slash Castlevania dungeon puzzle piece game they had on the original PlayStations. I'm sorry, PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3.
Yep.
Where it is now, it's a movie in itself, and it takes away from the fact that video games are an amazing medium, which we've talked about too in the RPG versus MMO episode. They are just as creative and influential as film is. Don't dilute it down by trying to be a money grab now. And who are you gonna cast as Kratos?
I mean,
you're just gonna have a big jack dude, and just
The Rock, obviously.
Yeah, and then just paint over him in white. And
I hope not. I really hope
it's good
not.
as it is. Like I'm not excited about that. I really am not. I don't think I'd even watch. I don't care who they casted.
I mean, I think they present two different issues, because I think the issue that anime traditionally presents is it's already been done in an animated format, like a visual format, right? In terms of you have motion, you've got effects and like lasers and lights and everything flashing across the screen. It's either super expensive to add all those effects into live action, or you're going to do them badly because they are effects. They're added effects. Like, how do you do a practical effect of, like, using the One Piece as an example, the attacks and everything, it's really fucking bombastic, over the top, the effects, the attacks, the characters, bright colors, shark people, mer people and stuff going on, stretching out, like, that's his whole thing, is gum and stretching and like, I don't want to see that be a stupid effect when it gets animated, because they have to do it. It's an essential part of One Piece. Is Luffy is a rubber man, and he has to be able to stretch and look convincing when he does it. Obviously, you can draw that convincingly, but I don't know that those effects translate to live action. So I think that's an inherent issue, translating animes into these live action adaptations, of making it look visually consistent and good with all these effects that you have to put in. Conversely, I think the issue with video games is a narrative one. And we've talked about this several times, I think, and also when we talked about BioShock. It's already kind of an interactive movie, right? Like, you're already part of the story being told. It has a complete story by itself. Like, and you're engaged with that in a way that you cannot engage with a movie. You know what I mean? So are you really just going to wholesale lift the plot out and just do it with actors, essentially, that you're putting up that wall now between the character and the player and stuff like that? Or like, what are you going to do to keep that feeling true to the games a little bit and keep the immersion? Because it's definitely, you're less connected from everything because you're seeing it through a screen instead of actually playing it. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just one of those things that in my head, it's like, they're challenges, but they're not insurmountable. So I would say overall, I remain positive on this direction. I don't know if I'm necessarily looking forward to either the One Piece or the God of War, but I don't hate the attention that animes are getting and video games, even if it is derivative. Like, I'm happy for some of this stuff to see wider audiences. You know what I mean? Like, God of War, I think, is a phenomenal franchise, and I would love to sit down and watch that with my fiance, who enjoys like The Witcher shows. Will she play the games with me? No, she's not a gamer. It's not her thing. She just doesn't like engaging with the story in that way. But she'll absolutely watch the show with me and enjoy that. So I don't know. It would be nice.
If God of War didn't take the step it took with this last one, I'd probably be more okay with it. This last one put it on the realm of just masterpiece and a masterpiece narrative and story. So that's why, to me, I'm just like, I could have dealt with the live action, Amazon show or movie on the original trilogy on, PS2 and PS3. Because there is a lot of room to interpret, and basically just being a dungeon crawler, there's a lot to still be desired as far as, interactions and cutscenes. This last one, though, I mean, just don't.
And to be fair, I don't know that we actually have confirmation over which storylines they are looking to adapt, because I kind of agree with you. I think if they went back to the original trilogy of God of War, which now is a little bit more dated, the game systems weren't as polished, it's definitely not as fresh in people's minds, and it has a complete story arc by itself, right? Like, you have a very, episode 1, 2, and 3, I do not recommend. Please, 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 Amazon, take my recommendation. This is not meant to be a trilogy of movies, but you can take the 3 of those, put them together in a really well done, fast-paced action movie, 2.5 hours, maybe like a extended season, because we're starting to see those like movie seasons comes out for limited series or whatever they call it. You know what I mean? Hour an episode, but it's done. Do like 2 or 3 of those and give me like a 3-hour movie essentially. I think it could be very well done. If you're trying to tackle Ragnarok, I think I have similar concerns as you, basically. So
no, but something we don't have a concern with. I know you're hyped with it.
Oh my god. I almost forgot about this. You're right. Fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer dropped. Fucking awesome. I'm so stoked for this. I mean, what do we need to say to people watching this show that they would not already know about the Star Wars franchise and Obi-Wan as a character? Like, what would they need for context? Anything? You have to know. If you watch the show, you have to know.
I think if you don't get a little bit jazzed up, like I had a mild erection when Dual Fates came on the trailer. I'm not gonna lie.
Right?
And then too, the line, Jedi leave, their compassion leaves the trail. Like that, yes. Like the fact that they were coming, you see the Grand Inquisitor. Well, first off, just go back, watch the original trilogy, watch the prequels, understand that Obi-Wan is a straight G, and do yourself a favor, watch the Clone Wars and also Rebels, because there's going to be a lot of crossover.
Yes.
And I think then too, it sets up a lot of what, the Mandalorian did, introducing, and even this last edition of Book of Boba Fett for, the good and the bad. It added more to the in-between kind of lore. And maybe too, it's making sense of the Tatooine problem that people have an issue with Star Wars. But I mean, Obi-Wan is, in my opinion, the best Jedi of all time, period. He's gone against the best Sith at all times, and the dude pretty much has always won. He's a G. Like, he doesn't get the props I think he deserves because he's maybe too involved. But in my opinion, he's not like a Leonardo or like a Cyclops, to where it's like fundamental leader figure and unlikable. You know what I mean? Like, he still kind of gets bullied around, and like he still has this underdog vibe about him, which is great. I don't know if it's because it's old man Ben as the first introduction, or even too because it's just like he was an apprentice when he fought Darth Maul, and it's like he had no Padawan. There's no reason you should have even taken him. But the show wise, what I'm giddy about is the fact that they're really going to show, my opinion, of like, the Sith get it, man. The Sith fucking get it. Like, the Jedi are fucking idiots. And it's like, they did utterly lose. They had everything in it, and it's like, they fucked up. The Jedi are idiots. I'm sorry. Did you watch Book of Boba Fett yet or no?
God, no, not yet. It's on my binge list.
You're killing one of my arguments, man.
Go for it. You can throw it out there. I'll take the spoiler for the team. Go for it.
There's a scene in that then when, Baby Yoda's in it, and basically, Mandalorian. There's like basically a Mandalorian episode in Book of Boba Fett. He's getting trained.
I have heard of that.
By, guess who? The OG Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
And the Mandalorian basically gives him some Mandalorian armor, and it's a gift. And basically, Luke ends up making Gorgo. I'm not gonna mispronounce his name just because I get. So I'm gonna mispronounce it. I'm just gonna call him Baby Yoda because it's gonna be a tongue twister for me. I hope
Uh,
that people listen to the show just for our mispronunciations.
we just need to do a supercut of all the wrong things. Yeah.
But no, he makes them, rather than being like, hey, going through this training, you're tapping into your like, forgotten Jedi training, forgotten memories. You've been making a lot of progress. Like you were once a Padawan. Like I'm gonna take you on, and it's also too,
Mhm.
we're all pretty much dead. So it's not like beggars can be choosers, right? No, what do the Jedi do? He makes them choose between having a lightsaber or the fucking Mandalorian armor, because the Mandalorian armor is an emotional attachment, and it's just like you don't have any fucking Jedi left. Like what the fuck are you doing?
I
You
know.
can't you can't just sit there and pick and choose. You
I
got
know.
a force sensitive kid. Give him the fucking
Well,
lightsaber.
it's
Figure it
fucking
out
crazy
later.
too. Well, because and like maybe Luke's thing, I don't know, is in part because of Obi-Wan, right? Because Obi-Wan was very aware of Anakin's attachment to Padme and his mother and his family and everything else, and he kind of just turned a blind eye to it. Right? Like when they were going around everything, he kind of just let it slide
But
for the most
then his
part.
fault with the Jedi for not knowing Palpatine was right there and
Well,
putting
that's a
fucking
whole other
Anakin
gap
on
in
him. You know what I mean?
storytelling, frankly. But
They
like,
can fucking sense somebody from a fucking another galaxy, but they couldn't sense the Sith Lord himself, the fucking Emperor, just right under their noses. Like how pathetic, like how bad is that?
I
That's my biggest
mean,
beef with the Jedi. Like they're fucking idiots.
the only thing I can offer in that regard is for me that feels a lot like. Do you know anything about the Wheel of Time series?
I
No,
watched the first like episode, but
the
that's
episode.
about
Okay,
it.
but never the books for you. So the books
No, I can't read,
themselves.
dude. You know this.
Right, I keep forgetting. Um. Anyway, the books themselves are very dense, very long, but they establish there's like the one power, which is that world's version of magic. There are two sides of it, which is very, Sith of the, Sith and Jedi of the Force kind of thing. There's the good and the bad, light and the dark. And there's ways to sort of detect someone using the opposite side of the one power, but you can't but it's never obvious. Like it's never something that they can see. So like if I'm using say the light side just for the purposes of discussion and you also use the light side, you can physically like visibly see me manipulating that energy. If I'm using the dark side and you're on the light side, you might get like goosebumps might break out. You might get this like sense of uneasiness. Like there's other sort of telltale signs, but nothing's like obvious. Like hey, someone's doing something wrong. It's also that could be subscribed to other phenomena. And so like the only thing I can say maybe in defense of Star Wars, and I don't know that it really works this way. Frankly, I don't think this is very well supported in lore. That the light and the dark side of the Force are perceived differently by the way people use them. Essentially, that the light side doesn't really sense the dark side in this, and like they don't sense each other clearly. But when it comes to Force sensitive kids who are neither light nor dark, they're probably like mutually detectable. I don't know. This is me doing my best to sort of shoehorn a fan theory in to something that doesn't. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. But I want to focus on Kenobi because the thing is, number one, what I like about it is we clearly know where the events in the show are going to happen relative to the Star Wars films, the timeline, right? It's clearly situated with Luke's time on Tatooine. It's very firmly between the end of the prequel trilogy and the beginning of the original trilogy. So we have the timeline down. Great. We've also gotten a lot of expansion of that timeline because it was sort of the era left untold previously. But you're right. Rebels got into it. Clone Wars got into it. And I think those franchises never got the recognition that they really deserved. And so I also love that from the preview that we've seen in the trailer, they're bringing in those elements and those story elements to the Disney Plus franchise. And not that they weren't canon before, but hopefully they bring attention to these because I think at the very least Clone Wars was really, really well done. And I think Rebels was solid as well. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think that they're as widely known as they ought to be. A lot of people know the movies, not everyone knows the shows. And I
Mhm.
think that's kind of a shame.
No, I think too, to see the Inquisitors live action and more lightsaber fights is going to be awesome. We've kind of got the space cowboy, bounty hunter stuff, Overkill, the Mandalorian, and Boba Fett. Not complaining, but you've had 3 seasons with that, and now it's back to the core of Sith versus Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that Hayden Christensen is going to be in it, so we are going to get to see him, reprise his role as Anakin, which is amazing, or
Yeah.
Vader, I should say, at this stage. And then we also going to have Ahsoka. So we got Rosario Dawson coming back into this as well. And again, if you watch Rebel and Clone Wars, uh, she's an OG.
Oh
I
yeah.
think I put her right behind Obi-Wan as far as my favorites, as far as Jedi are concerned. I mean, she's a G, but again, she's kind of more of a gray Jedi, blurs the line, but
Her
she gets it. She
personality, I
sees
think,
the
is great.
faults of the Jedi Order. And it's again,
Yeah.
she had the wherewithal not to go completely dark like Anakin, but the Jedi hurt themselves. Like they ostracize their own people, which is crazy. And I feel as like this show is going to explore that finally and not just hint at the whole, you know, pseudo religion nonsense
Well,
we've
I
seen in the
hope they do.
trilogies.
Because like you mentioned almost casually the idea of a gray Jedi. And my introduction to that concept was entirely based on Ahsoka's character. And I think there were like other like piecemeal things that fans sort of like found and put together of like this idea of like of what true balance might look like. And that argument that essentially the Jedi have gone to one extreme of the Force, the Sith have gone to the other extreme of the Force, and really they're both radical factions, and that somewhere either historically or like along the way there should have been something more middle of the road where effectively what's called gray Jedi. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of that entire conversation came from her character. And the fact that you just kind of like casually drop that as being like a thing in the universe, in the Star Wars universe, I think shows the impact that her character and Clone Wars and Rebels have had on the larger dialogue around Star Wars and the franchise. So I agree. It's fucking phenomenal that they're bringing this in to Kenobi. And I really hope they explore that concept because I never liked the all light, all dark thing in the first place. I think it's a kid's movie. So like I get where it comes from, but at the same time, it's not realistic. When you look at the Jedi, I think it's very hard for someone to argue that they were all good paragons of goodness, heroic, just like, fucking marvelous people all over the place, never did anything wrong, like best, all good deeds, best of intentions, all roads lead to hell, like that kind of shit. I don't know. So I'm very excited for this franchise. I cannot stop gushing.
What I'm excited about too is, we've heard about the Pike Syndicate then too now, and Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. And we got the teaser at the end of Solo with Darth Maul being involved with the Pike Syndicate. So I'm curious of how much of a role that's going to play in this series too. And are we going to see that? And I mean, Darth Maul is a G2. The last season of Clone Wars, I felt did a phenomenal job of, again, his character and Ahsoka's. Because yes, he's more of a Sith than he's evil, but Darth Maul is a very sympathetic villain when you really pull back the layers and stuff. Like you really,
I think he's a fan favorite Sith, honestly.
And like, it's just, if he would have been nurtured sooner by the Jedi, would he have went? I don't know. You know what I mean? But he's one of the strongest just force wielders and force sensitive persons, I think, that ever exists in that universe. So, and again, if we even get just a 10-second fight between him and Obi-Wan, I think I'd be like, yes, this is the best show ever created.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, there's so many things that they could do with this for it to go right. It's hard to imagine it going badly, which might be why it's going to go badly, right? Like the hype is so positive there. I gotta grain of salt myself. I'm Mr. Negative. It's always doom and gloom over here.
Yeah. I think if we get, say there's 8 episodes and we just narrow down, 45 minutes, an hour, so 8 hours worth. If we get a solid hour grand total of lightsaber battles, I don't think this is a failure. Because ultimately the new trilogy, the sequels and the shit, basically, we had one good lightsaber battle in that whole thing, basically. Because I couldn't respect the one at the end of Rise of Skywalker, because it was kind of just you take
Give
away like
power.
it was just like, yeah, I wanted to see the double turn, all that, but like we've been long overdue for some badass lightsaber fights between Jedi and Sith, live action wise. So I think, yeah, if we just get, one full hour of that much action and combat, I'm excited. Because
and they fucking teased us with it. They came in with the Duel of Fates as the song, which is the backdrop to one of the arguably best lightsaber battles in the entire franchise. So they came in real hot with that. They definitely got us teased and blue balling a little bit here. Like, hey, like, give it to me. I want the lightsaber fights. That's what I'm saying. Like, then I have to caution myself, and I'm just like, you know what, we've been hyped before for things. We've been excited before, and we've been let down before. Don't do this to yourself. And then
when
it comes in being awesome.
Inquisitors on screen, video games, animated, whatever, Star Wars, and it's been a letdown. I feel like if Inquisitors are involved, you got a pretty good track record there too. So
That's true. I think that's yeah, and like I'll say personally from a tone perspective, I'm hoping they're willing to make this darker. Like I know Star Wars as a franchise has been traditionally targeted towards kids. George Lucas was very big on that as being one of his guiding principles in developing the movies.
Sold a toy line
And
before they made the movie.
I'm sorry?
Sold a toy line before he made the movie.
Yeah, no, really. Yeah, exactly right. So I understand why some things have been simplified narratively. We talked about Light and Dark Force and stuff like that. I understand why they made choices like Jar Jar. I get it. It's appealing to kids. But the Star Wars universe itself is a really, really dark fucking place, man. Order 66, the killing of the Padawans, and like what they have, again, what is like a central part of what they've teased in the trailer, the hunting of the Jedi. It's a dark subject matter, and I really hope they don't approach it with kids' gloves in an almost literal sense of like, hey, let's keep this family-friendly, kid-friendly. Like, go ahead, explore that deeper side of it. You've got older adult fans who would love to see it. I would love to see it. I think other people would love to see it as well. You still have the kids along for the ride and stuff for the movies, but are you going to merchandise Obi-Wan? Really?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, Go for it. Fucking commit to it and go for it. Doesn't mean like an R rating or excessive gore, but like have the fights, have those dark discussions, have that morally gray, situations happening there as you're exploring what it means to be light and dark, and Obi-Wan maybe abstaining to do the right thing because he doesn't want to expose himself. What does that mean? Like, let's go down that hole. I want to see it. I'm so
with
hyped.
you. Listen, you're never going to hear me complain about.
Dude, you got to cut me off. I will just run on and on about this, man. I am so ready for it.
I appreciate that, man. Normally, I feel like I'm the excitable one, man. So I'm excited to see you show this much passion there, man.
Do not understand Obi-Wan.
Who's your favorite Jedi, and who's your favorite Force users?
Besides Obi-Wan.
Because I'll combine Jedi and Sith unless you have, specific ones. It's pretty broad. Don't want to go too long. I feel like, we'll go an extra hour diving into the top 5 list at this point.
I know.
Who's like your 3 faves
on
both sides?
Give me a second to think about it. Hit me with yours first, because I'm trying to.
In no order. I mean, Obi-Wan's definitely in there. Honestly, I think it's Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Darth Maul. Straight up. I think it's boom, boom, boom.
Interesting.
I can make cases for a lot of other folks in there, but I think those are 3 of the most dynamic personalities we've seen in the Star Wars universe, and I don't think they get any better than that.
That's very interesting. I think I'm gonna go Obi-Wan. I love. I'm surprised you didn't give Mace Windu any love.
Who?
Mace Windu? Samuel L. Jackson's
Mace
character?
Windu's a chump, man. I
What are you talking
like
about?
Mace Windu. I'm gonna get a lot of heat for that, but like, listen, Shannon Jackson's a badass, but Sam Jackson wasn't Mace Windu. I mean, Mace Windu wasn't Sam Jackson, I should say. Sorry. So it's just like he wasn't as badass as people give him credit for. And again, I'm sorry, dude. If you're this OG status, like people portray him as, you don't lose the Emperor at that moment in time, man. You just don't. You fucking don't. That's why you beheaded a bounty hunter called Jango Fett. And when the fucking chips are on your fucking shoulder and like it was up to you to be that OG, you fucking failed.
It's funny too, because it's spawned the whole the purple lightsaber, which was really just, as everyone knows, I think just a request of Samuel. He just wanted to be able to see himself on screen during the big fight scenes. Led to the Vapad. I'm gonna say it wrong. VAAPAD. Vapid lightsaber fighting style, combining elements of the light and the dark, and that's why he's got this, blue, red, purple lightsaber in the middle, because he's combining those elements and he's walking that dangerous line between them. It's become a whole huge thing with his character, and it came out of just kind of a simple request of like, hey, I want to see myself on the screen. Like, can you help me stand out a little bit? I will be specific in saying that I like Darth Vader, not Anakin. I know it's the same character, technically, but I think they're 2 very different incarnations of that character. You know what I mean?
Is there anything more menacing than Darth Vader?
Well, because for me, it's kind of similar to like if someone were to say they liked Luke, I'd absolutely ask which version of Luke, because in my mind, the sequel trilogy Luke was very different from the original trilogy Luke. based on his demeanor, the way he acted, his motivation, like just his overall morals. Like I mean, it almost was to the point. I think even, gosh, why am I struggling to bring up his name? The actor, Hamill. Mark Hamill was even disappointed in the sequel trilogy version of Luke and felt like it wasn't very representative of the character, essentially. Wasn't done well. So I think it's important to kind of specify like which version of a character we're talking about. Because even Ahsoka, when she first started out in Clone Wars, wasn't very likable. She really wasn't. She was kind of a cocky little brat. You know, she knew she was gifted and she had like a bunch of attitude about her. She got taken down a few pegs. She got her ass handed to her in a few fights. And like, she definitely learned from those experiences and her character grew a lot. You know what I mean? Like an absolute fuck ton. And then you see this in later fights when she encounters similar enemies again. She fights them again. And one, she holds her own a lot better. But two, she's also not like trying to do more than she can. She's very happy just like buying time for her allies and then escaping and stuff like that. We see the growth in her fighting. We see it in her character and, you know, her appearances. So again, I think it's important with characters that have big arcs to be specific. So I have a sneaking suspicion that whole long dialogue will get cut out. But what it boils down to is I'm definitely going to say Darth Vader specifically. Anakin, I was not a fan of. No hate on actor. It really wasn't, you know, it wasn't Hayden Christensen's fault at all. It was the way it was written. I did not like because I think he was written in a very unlikable, whiny, petulant fashion. So
yeah, let's back into clones issue there.
Yeah. But be that as it may, I think that brings this episode for us to a close. Been a bit of a chat, but for me, a very exciting one. I think I'm feeling more energetic now than I was. I hope this was something interesting and appealing to all of you viewers joining us week after week, or maybe for the first time. And hey, we really appreciate you coming by, listening to us chat about things important to us and hopefully important to you. And we hope you'll give us a like or a subscribe and keep coming back for more content. So that's it for Spectator Mode.